always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to a very precious metal. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. When our economy takes a tumble, there are a few precious metals that are ready to take up the slack. Gold is one of them. Investors have often believed gold to be a good investment, especially during tough times. This hour, a few golden moments with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Neil Young's Heart of Gold and Enrique Iglesias and Be With You. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Maybe one of these days I'll be able to give myself a gold star for being ordinary. And maybe one of these days I'll give myself a gold star for being extraordinary, for persisting. And maybe one day I won't need to have a star at all. Sue Bender, quoted in Simple Abundance, a daybook of comfort and joy by Sarah Bon Brannock. It reminds me of the story about the Wemmicks that was written by Max Lucado. It's absolutely amazing to think that over the past 6,000 years, all the gold ever mined in the world or used by us could fit into a very small space. In fact, the dimensions of this room would be 18 yards long by 18 yards high by 18 yards wide. I have an ounce of gold in the palm of my hand. It's amazing how easy it is to work with, to shape. This ounce of gold in the palm of my hand can be hammered into a very large sheet measuring 100 square feet. Or if I wanted to, I could stretch it out and fashion it into a wire that would reach 50 miles long. Most people, however, would be satisfied with the circumference of a finger or a wrist, or be pleased with a small chain that is draped around a delicate neck. This hour, some golden moments with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Whitney Houston and Where Do Broken Hearts Go? America with Sister Golden Hair, and the Ladies with Jane. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. This is one of my favorite stories. It's author unknown. It's called The Obstacle in Our Path. In ancient times, a king had a boulder placed on a roadway. Then he hid himself and watched to see if anyone would remove the huge rock. Some of the king's wealthiest merchants and courtiers came by and simply walked around it. Many loudly blamed the king for not keeping the roads clear, but none did anything about getting the stone out of the way. Then a peasant came along, carrying a load of vegetables. Upon approaching the boulder, the peasant laid down his burden and tried to move the stone to the side of the road. After much pushing and straining, he finally succeeded. After the peasant picked up his load of vegetables, he noticed a purse lying in the road where the boulder had been. The purse contained many gold coins and a note from the king indicating that the gold was for the person who removed the boulder from the roadway. The peasant learned what many of us never understand. Every obstacle presents an opportunity to improve our condition. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Michael Buble with Everything and Sting in Fields of Gold. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. From a culture in the Middle East, these are 3 gates. If you are tempted to reveal a tale to you someone has told about another, make it pass before you speak 3 gates of gold. These narrow gates. First, is it true? Then, is it needful? In your mind, give truthful answer. And the next is last and narrowest. Is it kind? And if to reach your lips at last it passes through these gateways 3, then you may tell the tale, nor fear what the result of speech may be. 3 gates. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Jann Arden and Nevermind, and Train with Drops of Jupiter. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. I've always liked this story. It was featured in Hearts That We Broke Long Ago by Merle Shane and published in 1985 as a Seal trade paperback. She wrote, and I quote, "There is a Sufi story I like about a beggar who approached a mullah as he emerged from the mosque after prayers and asked him for alms. 'Are you extravagant?' the mullah demanded of the beggar. The beggar answered, 'Yes.' 'Do you like sitting around drinking and smoking?' The beggar replied, 'Yes,' again. 'I suppose you like to go to the baths every day?' The answer again was yes. 'And maybe even amuse yourself by drinking with your friends?' The beggar hung his head and said, 'Yes, I like all these things.' 'Tut, tut,' answered the mullah, and gave him a gold piece. Another beggar nearby solicited the mullah and was asked the same questions, to which he replied, No, I want only to live meagerly and pray.' The mullah gave him a small copper coin. 'But why,' wailed the beggar, 'do you give me, an economical man, a penny when you give that extravagant fellow a gold sovereign?' 'Ah,' replied the mullah, 'because his needs are greater than yours, I must give him more.'" As Merle Shane goes on to write, and again I quote, "When you say this is what I need, you are halfway there to making your wish a reality. And as long as you say I don't really care, you never get what you care about. You get what you expect, which is to say, to go on being disappointed." Unquote. Merle Shane from Hearts That We Broke Long Ago. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Carly Simon and Friends. And You're So Vain, John Lennon, Watching the Wheels, and Sarah McLachlan and World on Fire. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. And finally this hour, a Malayan proverb states, one can pay back the loan of gold, but one dies forever in debt to those who are kind. A few golden moments this hour with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.